So what's step one? To find the total rise and do that, we're going to convert it all into inches. So 7, 11, and 1/4 is how much? 95.25 plus 14.25 gives us 109.5 inches. So we got 109.5 inches. What is step 2?
Divide 109.5 by 7.
Find the number of rises, and you are correct. So 109.5 divided by our proposed 7 inches, which is going to give us 15.64, which we are going to round to 15 rises. So that number, since we're going to go slightly larger than 7 each time, that number is always rounded down from 15.6 down to 15. Step 3. Find the actual riser or unit rise. How do we do that? Take our total rise, 109.5 divided by 15 rises. .3, which is 7 inches. 0.3 times 16 is 4.8, so that's 5/16. How many of you had 7 and 5/16 inches for your unit rise? Couple? You see how to get it? You see where you went wrong? Okay. Part 4. Required drop for head clearance. Remember, that is head clearance plus floor thickness. We are going to assume that we are using the 80-inch head clearance, the 6'8", plus a floor thickness of 13.25, 95.25 inches of required drop. Is it 14? Okay, thank you. We shall make that change quickly. It's 14.25, so it's 94.25 inches of required drop. Next step. Required number of rises. How do we find the required number of rises? Careful. Required drop divided by unit rise. So 7 and 5/16. Right. So 94.25. This is going to be a little trickier here. 94.25 divided by. Now your calculator does fractions for most of you. I've got to put mine in as 7 plus 5 divided by 16 in parentheses. Now I'm going to get 12.88888. 12.889 rises. That number we will always round up. 13 rises. Step 6. Required unit runs. You got it. Number of rises minus 1. 13 minus 1 gives us 12 runs. Number 7. Stair opening, yes, is the number of runs. 12 runs times the 11-inch tread is 132 inches for 11 foot. That's all I asked you to find. What do you think? That's all you really needed to do. It's a lot of steps, but the math behind each step is not too horrible.
No, yeah. Luckily, I've been writing it down step by step, so if I
Good.
refer to my notes, I should be able to do it. Not quickly, mind you.
Need that last part for a minute yet?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
What if we put in a landing? There are a few different cases we can run into here. So a landing, obviously, we're going to go down some steps, hit a landing and turn and go down some more steps. Now, the easiest way to do a landing is to put the height of a landing at the step required for head clearance so that you can hit that landing and your floor opening is just going to be shaped like that. You don't have to have it here. But all these steps over here are going to be below your head clearance. So you can run your floor just straight over and not have to have this L-shaped hole in your floor. That's the ideal way to do it. The problem is when you do it that way, notice here we had like 13 required rises. Only 15 rises is all it took to get from one floor to the next. So what that means is you'd have your landing and you'd only have 2 steps here down to the floor. Well, that's not a very good use of a landing now, is it? I mean, it does save you 2 steps here. So it saves you like 22 inches here, which isn't terrible. Some people are like, well, what if I just put those 2 steps here and went straight up? Well, you have to have a minimum of 36 inches clearance by code between the bottom of the steps and the basement wall. And that is finished wall. I've seen a lot of people get in trouble with this. They put it in at 36 or 38 inches from the block wall, and then they go to finish off their basement, and they stud that wall in and insulate it and poly it, and that adds 4 inches to the inside of that wall. So now you're below. I mean, it's not terrible for trying to navigate it. I mean, I always go 38 inches anyway instead of 36. 36 just seems tight for me. Personally, usually when I build a stairway, minimum code for a stairway, these are your stud walls on either side of your stairway. Minimum code for stairway is 36 inches of clearance, but usually it's 3 foot 6 inches center wall to center wall on your stud walls. So it actually comes up to 3 foot 2 in between. But most places require you to have a railing if you have more than like 3 or 4 steps. I believe it's 3 steps is railing, more than a 24-inch total drop. Well, that required 36 inches of stair clearance is after the railing. So if you put a hand railing in here, mounted up, most hand railings stick out 3 or 4 inches, you're below your clearance. That'd put you at 34 or 35 inches. So I generally do 4 foot flat. So I've got 48 inches, which means even after my 2 inches on each side of the wall, I've got 44 inches. I can put in a hand railing and still have 40 inches. I can put in a hand railing on both sides and still have 36 inches if I want. I know it's a little bit wasteful. People are like, well, why are you wasting 4 to 6 inches of the house for a stairway? Well, because what's usually in the basement of a house that you use at least once a week or so? Well, laundry. Carrying a laundry basket up a 36-inch stairway is a bear. Most of your laundry baskets are 36 or 38 inches wide. So to me, it's just worth it to carry if you're going to be carrying anything up and down your stairways, having that extra width. That's my personal preference. So, not that you guys have to be beholden to my preferences. So anyway, there are a couple of ways that these stairs can go in. We're going to look at number 1, where we only have 2 steps down here, so that we got our head clearance. Does that make sense? So all of our, we're not necessarily going to have 2 steps, but all of our head clearance is achieved by the landing. So there isn't, it is just a rectangular stair opening. There isn't the L shaped off to the side here. So for that one, this is the stairway itself. We haven't drawn in the floor. We have a floor thickness of 14 inches. Lower level ceiling height of 95 inches. Tread of 11 inches. Step number 1 is still finding our total rise. Now I did this easy, so I do 95 plus 14 is 109. What's step 2? Number of rises. So 109 divided by our target of 7, which is 15.571428, something like that. Yeah. So that means we are going to do 15 rises. We round that down because we'd rather be a slightly more than 7. 3. The actual riser height is going to be 109 divided by 15. .2666. That's 7.2667. So that's 7 inches and a quarter, I'm guessing, but we'll double check it. 4.26. Yes, that is 4/16 or 1/4 inch. So our riser height is a 7 1/4. Now you'll notice this was actually 4.26, so it's a little bit more than 7 1/4 is really where this should be. So when you're doing these, every now and then you do want to check and see you're not getting too far off on your stringer. Usually you account for it. I make the rise a little bit higher. I would technically probably make this 7 5/16, so that when I set my stringer, the total height of my stringer is actually taller than it has to be. So what happens then is you set your stringer. If you make them all 7 1/4, your stringer sets a little bit like this. You see what I'm doing there? Those are sloping down just a little bit. If you make them 7 5/16, the string is actually a little bit higher than it needs to be. So the treads actually lean into the stairway a little bit. Which, I mean, that lean is, like I said, less than a 1/16 of an inch per tread. So, I mean, it's not a noticeable lean, but it is. I would rather have it lean into the stairway than away from the stairway. If you put a hard surface on the stairway, like a linoleum or vinyl or a tile or whatever, that can get a little slippery, that little bit of a slope could be enough that if you're moving quickly, you could slide off. So I'd rather have it sliding into the stairway than off the stairway. Just a very subtle, I mean, very, very thin. So for mathematically 7 1/4 is where we're at in practice. I would probably do it 7 5/16, or maybe even 7 3/8 just to make it easier. And like I said, 1/8 of an inch over 11 inches is not noticeable, but it could make a difference. So 7 1/4 is our unit rise. Number 4, a required drop is 80 inches plus 14 inches is going to be 94 inches. What's step 5? Number of rises. Required number of rises is going to be 94 divided by 7. 13.428571428. Right? Correct? Don't trust me? Or you trust me too much? Okay, so 13 point blah, blah, blah. With this one, we always round up to 14 rises. Which means we need well, there's a landing here. Does the landing change things? Here's our floor. You got 1 drop, 2 drops. There's our landing. Notice each tread has a riser to it. But we are going to turn the corner at the landing and we're going to get a drop at the side of the landing. So we can still subtract 1. The landing basically works just as another tread. A huge tread, exactly. So the number of runs, 14 minus 1, we're going to have 13 runs. So our stair opening is going to be 13 times 11. 143. Inches. Or 11 foot 11 inches. Now the problem here, what that just found was the distance from here to here. I need to add in the size of my landing. Let's say that my landing is going to be 38 inches square, which is pretty much a minimum landing size. 36 inches is minimum code, but you never see them built at 36. So a 38-inch landing. So you're going to have to add 38 inches to this, which is going to give us 181 inches, which is 15 feet and 1 inch, right? So that means from here to the wall is 15 foot 1 inch. That's where you got to start that stairway. Does that make sense? Yes? What's that? Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to do it the other way. In this method, I am going to give you what we have for stair opening. So I'm going to say that we have we are able to come out from the wall here . 115 inches. That is all we have. Whether there's another wall here that comes, maybe there's a door here that we have to be able to get out of and leave clear, or whatever. That's as far as we can come out from the wall here. So I want to know then, how far do we get to go, have to come this way? That's what we're looking for. How far does that stair opening have to come that way? We're going 38 inches wide. 38 inches wide for the stairway. Which means the landing is 38 inches wide either way, both ways as well. Lower level ceiling height, 96 inches. Floor thickness, 15 inches. Step 1. Total rise, yes. They're all 96 inches, and 15 inches makes 111 inches. Total rise. Step 2. Number of rises. 111 divided by 7 is 85714,286 approximately, right? This one we want to round down to 15 rises. So we'd rather have it a little bit more than 7 than a little bit less. Actually, this one being that close, I probably would have rounded up to 16. But we're going to stay consistent. We're going to round it down. 15 rises. Step 3. Actual unit rise, the actual riser. So 111 divided by 15 is going to give us 7 point what? 7.4 exactly? Perfect. So that is 7 inches, and 0.4 times 16 is 6.4, so that is 6/16 or 3/8. Again, I would probably make that 7 and 9 or 7 and 7/16 or 7.5, because it's really close to 6.4 is basically 6.5/16, so it's halfway to 7/16 anyway. But anyway, we got 7 and 3/8. Next, step 4. Required drop for stair opening, right? SO stands for stair opening. So required stair opening drop. 80 inches for head clearance plus 15 for floor thickness. Yeah, 95 inches. Step 5. Required number of rises. 95 divided by 7, which is going to give us 13.57142857,143. Right? Which you will always round up to 14. Good. So you require 14 rises here. Step 6. Number of runs. So we've got 14 minus 1 is 13 runs. So our stair opening requires 13 runs. Okay. We can stop there for right now. Because calculating the actual stair opening is meaningless because we have a restriction here. Remember, we have this restriction of 115 inches. So we need to figure out number of runs we get out of 115 inches. So this is where we step out of the normal process. Look at 115 inches. Now, of that 115 inches, 38 inches of it is going to be landing. So 115 minus 38 is 77 inches, correct? Divide that by 11 inches per tread, gives us 7 treads, correct? So we have here 7 treads plus a tread for the landing. That is 8 treads, 8 runs. We need 13, so that means this way we have to go with 5 runs. So that's going to be 5 times 11, or 55 inches that way. So this here is 55 inches or 4 foot 7 inches. What do you think? So the math is easy. It's remembering the process. Get a new tattoo right on your other arm, right here.
Yeah, it's all.
There you go. Encode it and find some way to include it into the design of your ink so nobody can really see it unless you look just right.
That'd be pretty good. I want to get poison ivy tattooed on me so I remember what it looks like on all the wood.
There you go. That's actually not a terrible idea.
I play football once in a while, and the last few times I hit a nasty patch or something. God, it sucks.
Play what?
Wood ball.
What's that?
It's like paintball, except it's yeah, it's a lot less like paintball. It's semi-automatic only. You don't have those rubber streeters.
So, in the packet I just gave to you, on page 311, numbers 1, 2, and 3. I want you to do those 3. And if you wanted to do some of them on the next page, you could, but those are the 3 I want you to be able to do. For number 2, they're asking to give you the total rise, and they want you to figure out, they want you to actually figure out the floor thickness. They're giving you the floor joist, the 7 3/8, the subflooring of 3/4 of an inch, finished floor of 5/8. So you have to add those together to get the floor thickness. And they're giving you there is a total rise, not the ceiling height. Okay? I mean, it looks like it's a ceiling height because, well, 94 inches is a low ceiling on its own, but technically this is only like a 7-foot ceiling there. Okay? I want to see if you guys can figure that out given different information, if you can do a little backwards work there. Like I said, on Thursday when you guys come in the door, we will be doing, while I work with the telecom broadband guys, you guys are going to be doing a quiz. Mostly on hips and valleys. There are going to be 2 hip problems. One problem is a conventional hip, so you'll need to do 1 jack difference because it's the same difference on both sides. The other one will be an unconventional hip, so you have to have both of the differences. Then you'll have a conventional valley, so there's only 1 difference, and then an unconventional valley, like what we did to start off the day today. Then there'll be a stair opening. You can use your notes, you can use your packets.